Welcome to the Beyond Cinema studio up here at Sundance, presented by Celebs.com. Jacek, Louis, Kevin, Mark, the team from Shopping. Firstly, congratulations, Mark, being back here, guys. I mean, co-writing, directing this film. It's your first feature. How does it feel to have that under your belt and have this sort of a validation for it, I guess?
Oh, it's been really interesting, actually. We've just been doing all of our publicity stuff right up until now. It just feels like we've stopped today, actually. It's been a big journey. So, yeah, it feels great. It feels like we're actually sort of on the other side of the work, if you like. But it's great to come back to Sundance after such a great time here last time.
Yeah. The success of $6.50 Man as a short, do you think that that's prepared you for this? Do you think that that was like just an experience you had to have, like going through doing those projects?
Yeah, totally. We really wanted to dive into shorts years ago. Me and Mark have talked about it since we started working together in our early 20s. It was always a vehicle to get to feature films. And one thing we learned about feature films off the back of short films is that really there isn't that much difference. You're telling a story. It's a different form in that it's longer, but the amount of pre-production, you have to elongate that. The journey itself, it's like 5-6 short films.
I think we were saying the other day, with a short film, you shoot for a week and you have 2 weeks prep. With the feature film, I think we had 2 or 3 weeks prep and a 6-week shoot. And it's funny because on the way to the feature, we were talking as we were doing our shorts, going, when we get to the feature, it'll all be different. We'll have way more time.
Oh yeah, man.
So not
dreamy.
Is it weird, like making films in New Zealand? Like obviously that we hear about The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, all this sort of stuff. If you're making a film now with that sort of production going on at the same time, is it hard for you guys to crew up, or did you guys stay with you from the shorts, and are you kind of immune from having to worry about the production resources side?
I think we're lucky in New Zealand. There's a hub of people that work in the industry that don't want to work on The Hobbit or those bigger style of films. And what it actually does is gives us world-class facilities in Wellington. Like I think we were mixing our film and we could hear The Hobbit grumbling
next
down
door,
the hallway.
Orcs screaming, and it was horrific.
They moved out of their mixing theatre and we moved in. So
yeah, and there is that. I think that's a cool thing. A lot of people have been involved in those bigger projects for a decade now, and have cut their teeth. Some of them won Oscars, like Mike Hopkins, who sadly passed away, 2-time Academy Award winner. He was mixing our film, and he loved this story more than the others because he sadly passed away shortly afterwards, because it was just down to earth, because it was a simple story, a real Kiwi tale, as opposed to orcs and Royal Riders. It was just really raw. And so there are people in our crews in New Zealand that really love getting down and dirty.
It's a Kiwi tale, and I found in a sense, but then it's also like an Oliver Twist sense. Jacek's character very much a Fagin, kind of takes in these kind of odd assortment of people and has them do things for him that are probably a little below the radar, a little less than sanitary, but it's still a family, right?
It's absolutely a family, and I think the part of it, certainly the protagonist part, the young guy who comes under the influence of these forces, push-pull forces, we can recognize those moments in our lives where we, most of us, I imagine, certainly I have, felt it could have gone many different ways. Yeah. Thankfully, it hasn't quite, but it's nice to revisit a place like that. I think that's universal.
But the other thing, I mean, that's universal. But then on a New Zealand level, the classic films out of New Zealand over the last however many years, maybe 20 years, is like the element of domestic violence keeps appearing and reappearing. Now, is that because it's a reality, or is that because it's just a dramatic choice?
I think that in New Zealand we all actually accept locally in NZ that we do have a problem with domestic violence. I mean, internationally, it's across the board, but I think our statistics are pretty bad. They're right up there. And our approach with our work, because it comes from real raw experiences, is not to shy away from that. It's better to out it and get it out there and have us talking about it and having people that have experienced it. And sadly there's a lot of them, be able to recognise, themselves in the story, and, it's out from under the, out of the closet, out from under the carpet. And, we can address it then. But while it's just sitting in the papers as statistics and people are quiet and don't feel it's been not so much accepted, but conveyed through all forms of media, we're not really dealing with it. So, we're pretty on the jaw with that one.
I think we both feel the same way too. Like, if we're going to tell our stories, we're not telling our stories if, the scenes don't play out how we kind of remember a lot of stuff from when we were growing up. We don't, How can you hold back on the language and have the same story? For instance, there is a lot of kind of language in our film, but that's kind of the way it was,
Yeah. Well, I mean, both Run and this film have the abusive dad to an extent, the cassette recorder being utilised by the kids, and of course, kids being the central figures in this. Each time you've gone with new faces. Kevin, I mean, this is your first movie, right?
Yeah, I've never even really acted before, so it was like...
Meanwhile, Jacek's been on every Baz Luhrmann picture for the last however long.
Yeah, I didn't even know how many he was in until I read the description. I was like...
You got up to Sutherland, you're reading his bio and just, oh, that's cool. So what was it like when you first met these guys? Was that because you wanted to be an actor and you were looking for opportunities, or did they just kind of find you and have a chat and decide?
They found me eating butter chicken in a food court one day because they were also in line, just behind me. And I must have looked the part, or the back of my head must have looked the part, because they were behind me in line. And they ended up tapping on my shoulder as I left.